a toxic parent? Some of these behaviors can, creep in, and sometimes you don't notice when they start to happen. Today, we are talking about how we can stop being toxic parents, if at all we are. Hi, my name is Christine Kasina, and welcome to today's Parent. I am joined by James Mbugwa, a counseling psychologist who's going to share with us tips on toxic parenting and where we need to press stop. Mr. Mbugwa, it's a pleasure to have you because so many people have been requesting for us to do a show on toxic parenting. I'll tell you why. Because as parents, we don't have bosses. We can do whatever, however, because we are the boss of our kids, right? But as parents, who is our boss?
Thank you. This is a very worthy topic at this particular times in our society. And maybe we need to realize right from the outset. You say rightly that as parents we don't have bosses. But this is a subject that probably can be contended for or against. And one of the beginning point is that this child that we are bringing up, remember the child is an unwilling party in my life. We brought them without their consent. And simply because they came into our lives, it doesn't mean that we need to treat them just anyhow.
Just because.
That we wish is just because they're in our lives. They have their rights, we have obligations to them, and the critical thing that we need to understand is that every other parent out there, including myself as I sit here, I'm a steward on behalf of our maker who gave this child to me, and one day I'm going to answer into how I did the parenting game.
I like that. We are stewards of our children, not bosses.
Not bosses.
So it doesn't mean that we do whatever, however, to them, just
Whatever
because
we
brought them to this earth.
Yes.
So what would you consider as a counseling psychologist as a healthy relationship between a parent and a child?
A healthy relationship between a parent and a child, number one, it must start with having very clear boundaries.
Boundaries.
This is me, this is my child, and this is how we are going to relate. Oftentimes, toxicity comes because of enmeshment, in which I don't know my remit, and the child doesn't know their limits because we have not made the boundaries very clear. The other thing, an awareness of who I am in the life of this child, that am I just a parent, am I just that boss, or am I somebody who is very, very important in the well-being of this person? And then the other thing is, have I dealt with my childhood issues? Because sometimes this bitterness, this hard-heartedness is coming because of where I'm coming from, the family of origin dynamics.
But the beautiful thing is toxic parenting can stop with our generation.
It can.
That's a good thing. How about to define for us what is considered to be a toxic parent? How is that defined?
Well, there are many ways to go about this. Number one, the toxic parent is angry.
Angry.
The toxic parent is controlling. The toxic parent is oftentimes somebody who would want the child not to have, their independence.
Yes.
Somebody who is in competition with their children. Let me give an example. And especially for parents who are hitting the midlife time of their life, the 40s, the 50s, you find that this parent now start dressing like their daughter when they were 18. Then you find the daughter is dressing like their mother at that years. So you find there's a lot of conflict. The mother wants to be 18, the daughter wants to settle at 30 years.
That's an interesting
So there's
angle.
a lot of issues happening here. And this is now where, because of my crisis, I am passing it to my daughter or to my son, and I have not resolved it.
Councillor Mbugwa, going back to the first point that you mentioned, it's normal human nature to be angry. But when is it being angry as a parent? When does it become toxic?
The anger that demeans. Anytime a child suggests something, instead of responding, the answer is a demeaning one. Where do you think we are going to get that? Do you think I'm a manufactory?
Yes.
Sometimes when we are bringing these children alone, single parenting, sometimes we can be hit so much by this. No, you think that I'm able to bring you to this level.
Yeah.
An anger that is not explained but it is like we are rushing out at our children because of the
Of
felt
what we have
gaps
gone through.
in our lives. Yes.
So that could be one level of anger that's just excess. You lash out
Yes.
at your child.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
that's one way you can be a toxic parent.
Yes.
And then the other way you said you've reached, I like the way you put it.
Yes.
Those middle years, what are they called?
The
What did-
midlife.
Yes,
Yeah.
when we are going through midlife,
Yeah.
and then I want to dress up like my teenager.
Yes.
How is that toxic, by the way?
Well, I must say, like, you're walking with your daughter out there and she's very uncomfortable because mom is here putting on those, the jeans that have come in, the torn ones, the ones we are even shouting out
they're
in
called
the
ragged.
church.
Ragged
Yeah,
jeans.
the ragged jeans, and we are even saying out there in churches and in community gathering, like, if you have the ragged jeans, if you have the torn clothing, please bring them to church so that we can donate them to the children of the rich, because now it is the rich who are now working with this. So you are there as a mother who is probably 45, you are donning these jeans.
With my ragged jeans.
Yes. So how is your daughter going to dress? So sometimes they get a little bit confused.
Okay.
The father is there probably now swinging their own 18 years rook, and the boy who is 21 here who wants now, you know what we say in Kenya, to be catering the young girls out
Yeah.
there. The dad is doing it better than him. So it
Going
is
through
like
midlife crisis.
Yeah, the midlife crisis. So it becomes an issue
I hear you.
in the life of this child.
I
So
hear
the
you.
critical thing is parents. The message the children are giving us is they want us to be parents and leave them to be the youth, to be the children growing up in a family in which they are appreciated.
Okay.
So we have had an incident even in the past in which a mother and a daughter were dating one person. And it is like, what's
is
happening
beyond
here?
even not having boundaries.
Because the moment you realize this is a boyfriend to your daughter, you keep off and learn. If you have wings, just fly away. Because this is not even African. It is not, I don't think it is Western.
No.
So the critical thing, you find a lot of competitiveness. That I can do better, I can do this better. And it is the parent actually telling the child. And in normal parenting, it is always the wish and the desire of the parent, a parent, to see a child do better than him at all levels.
That's why we are working so hard.
So if I was a primary school teacher, I would want my son, my daughter, to become a university lecturer.
That's true.
If I'm a university lecturer, I would want them to end up being a medic, because I'm doing the very best to see that they bypass me.
Yeah.
But for a toxic parent, you find that this is not the case. So they are controlling, they are competitive, and you find that a lot of it, there is that held in bitterness that I want to prove myself from my child or from whatever I do. Then the other thing that you find with toxic parent is self-centeredness. A word you used at the beginning, narcissism.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there is a lot of self-love. The parent, the world must revolve around the parent. And the child is left like, am I an intruder here?
To this person's life, to my
Yes.
my mother's life, to my
Yes.
father's life.
So that you find that oftentimes, whenever the child is thinking or even talking to the parent or even dreaming about seeing them, they actually shiver. They are trembling.
Like,
it is
how
like,
can I
I don't
avoid
want to
going
go
there?
home quick. I don't want to meet with these guys. I don't want to be in their life whatsoever, because any other contact I have with them, they leave me drained. And actually children talk of feeling very drained
when they're around their
when-
toxic parents.
yes.
Councillor Mbuga, you've just reminded me of a conversation I had with a friend of mine. And to him, when he thought about a toxic parent, it went to as basic as a parent who doesn't provide basic provision, if they can and when they can, for their child.
Yeah.
Just to frustrate them, that you don't know how your child eats,
Yeah.
sleeps, where they go, how they come back, what they wear. No.
Yeah. So you find that happens. It happens a lot. So the critical thing is, how do we help these children in this kind of a relationship?
Even before we
Yes.
go to helping,
Yeah.
how about
Yeah.
how toxic parenting affects our children?
Oftentimes it has lifelong repercussions.
There you go.
Because the way you are brought up end up determining whom you become. Oftentimes today, in our counseling profession, in our psychology profession, we talk of childhood traumatic experiences. If a child never got through them, they become like they're genetic. They will be passed on along the line.
It's coded to the next generation.
To the next generation if it has not been dealt with. And this trauma can affect the others in the lineage. So how I'm brought up, my family of origin dynamics, like I said earlier, is going to affect my children
Absolutely.
if I don't deal with
Absolutely.
it today. So that's very, very important. So these children need to be helped so that it is not passed to the generation that comes along the way.
Isn't it amazing, Councillor Mbogwa, that normally it's not even what was not done, it is what was said. Because even later on in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, the one thing that say your father or your mother told you, you got this, like you said, A, say it was a B minus. Why can't you get a B plus like so-and-so's, And those things stay with you for a lifetime.
Yes, and unfortunately the parents who keep on telling their children that they needed to have gotten an A plus, were D class, why A class?
A D class parents.
Yes. They keep on telling the children that we used always to be number one. Sometimes you're left wondering,
who used to be... a parent was number last, by the way.
Have you ever met them? Never.
No.
So the critical thing is give the child space that I was able to do this. There's one day I took my son and I told him, son, look here, I struggled with mathematics, but you can do better.
There you go.
Yes, because in Form 4, I just scraped through.
Well done.
Yes, so at the end of the day, you tell him, I struggled with this.
But you can
I tell him I was perfect in this, but I expect you, even my daughter, I expect you to do better than me. Yeah, because this is about, I tell them, learn to beat daddy in his own game, and life continues.
Let's hold that thought on how we can beat daddy and mommy, but not, of course, in the physical sense. We take a short break, and then we continue when we come back.
Thank you.
In our conversation today, we have Councillor Mbogwa. We are talking about toxic parenting. If you're one, or even if you feel you're one, but most of the time, of course, we could be doing these small things, and we don't know that we are doing them. This episode is going to help us see how we can stop and pinpoint these behaviors. Let's take a short break and then we continue our conversation when we come back. Welcome back to this episode of Today's Parent, where we are talking about toxic parenting. We've talked about the characteristics, and now with Councillor Mbogwa, we are going to talk about how we can put a break on it and stop being toxic parents. I will let you take it from there.
Thank you. The beginning about helping this child depends on the age of the child. And for all of us, we need to realize that the child needs to be helped in one way or the other to understand that they don't have to take the poison that comes from their parent. It is not about them, it is about the parent. Depending on the age, we say walk away. And walking away literally means don't answer them, don't get into an arguing game. Don't confront them, because some of these toxic parents wait for the confrontation and they will scream the whole house down. Look at him, look at her, they want to kill me. Remember, some of these parents are grappling with a sense of direction. Around ages 40, 45, 50, there's what we call the need for generativity in every one of us, in which we remake ourselves, in which we correct the mistakes of youth. And sometimes for some parents, they are not able to do that. So instead of developing what we call integrity, they live a life of despair. And this despair is actually transmitted to their children.
And
they feel as a failure, and this failure is actually passed to their children. So we need to help the child know this is not about you, it is about mommy and daddy. Therefore, how do I deal with it? Avoid all forms of confrontation. If the child probably are living out there and they are probably married, because some of them are and still the parents are toxic, the critical thing is, if the parent come visiting, put boundaries.
How do you do that, by the way?
Yes, right before they come, mommy, this is my house with my husband.
And my rules.
Yes, and here you go by my rules. You'll be here only for 2 days. You know, the Western countries
It's
are
very
able
sad
to
to get to
to
that,
do that very well.
It's very sad to get to that.
Yes, but sometimes it has to happen so that the toxicity is not brought from the rural areas and brought to you in Nairobi or wherever. So critically set rules. Remember, they are not going to change easily.
No.
It is you who is going to change.
And protect yourself.
And we want to tell these children that don't get into the game of wanting to change them. Sometimes it is so ingrained. Unless they get professional help, you are not the one to change them.
And feeling
So
like
the
there's something you
critical
need to
thing
do.
is, how do you live with it? So walk away. Avoid confrontation.
Councillor Mboga,
Yeah.
before you go on, I'd want for you to take us back to the scenario of walking away and equipping us with tools. Say if for people who are watching who have had toxic parents and 30 years later they are still bitter and grappling with, I want my mother to love me, I want my father to love me, or do something different. How do I get to that point? Or when I get to that point where I want to walk away, how do I do that and do that respectfully, if at all?
Well, I must start by saying within our African context, it's a very difficult scenario because the toxic parents usually, and especially in our environment, they never walk alone. They will get the help of an auntie, they will get the help of an uncle, and they will be saying, Christine has ganged up with her husband to finish me.
There you go.
This diabetes you see,
Is
this
it
blood
because of
pressure you see
Christine?
is because of this and this and this. So the critical thing is, Mommy, these are the boundaries, and we are going to operate within this rule.
Yeah.
If if you come to my place and you do what you did last, you're not welcome. And it's very, very difficult to get to that particular situation in
That is
which
sad.
you say.
That is sad.
Because remember what the Bible says, we still need to respect them.
Yeah, and honor
But
them.
respecting parents doesn't mean allowing them to trample all over
and
you
walk all over you.
and walk all over you. There's always a limit.
So number one,
even
walk away if you
walk
can.
away from them. If this is a phone call they have done, listen and let them live and rant over the phone until they keep quiet.
And then you
When
say
they
goodbye.
ask you, like, are you still there? Don't disconnect, because that will be construed as rude.
Yeah.
Yes.
That becomes another issue by itself.
Yes. Sometimes if you can put it on loudspeaker, if you're in the kitchen, put it there and let her talk and let him talk. Continue doing your own things. Realize always, and this is something I want to stress so much, and I'll keep on repeating it. It is not about you. It is about her
I
or
think
him.
that's very hard to hear.
That's very,
That's
very
hard to hear.
important. Because sometimes the parent want to transfer the blame. They are very good in the blame game.
And you carry that burden
Yes.
for years.
And you carry the burden. So don't accept that blame. Let her or him deal with his or her issue, and for you now heal from there. Then the next thing after doing this, remember you can't handle this one alone. Probably you have a supportive husband, a supportive wife. It is also good to get a professional in the mix, because sometimes it leaves you so tired.
Yeah.
You know, there will always be that love, that yearning that I would want to be good with mommy.
Yeah,
I would want to
everybody
be
wants
good
that.
with
Who doesn't
daddy.
want a good relationship
Yes,
with their
everybody
parents?
desires for
Everybody
that.
wants one.
So the critical thing is get that other person so that you can now be helped. You are not being helped for him or for her. You are being helped for yourself. Then get the support of your spouse. Let them now work with you, because it's so draining. And remember, sometimes, like if you are living here in Nairobi and your parents are in Oshago,
Yeah.
sometimes even when you go there, those others have already labeled you
Of
because
course.
of the issues
Of course.
that emanates from your parents down there.
Councillor Mbugwa, speaking about seeking professional help, do you ever get, say a parent and a child coming to see you, they say, we want to repair our toxic relationship? Do you ever get such a scenario?
Once in a while it has happened, and you would be surprised. It usually emerges when you are doing premarital counseling.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to get married. Then along the way, as we do the family of origin issues, the issue of the relationship between daddy and this girl, mommy and this girl or this young man crops up. And often at that time, We have to stop everything else about the premarital counseling and concentrate now on helping him or her heal.
Yeah, this
Because
relationship
sometimes
and all that.
it's like, how will mommy act during my wedding? And you
You're
know,
so
this is your
worried about
special
that.
day. This is, you know, some people have even walked down the aisle without their biological mother.
Yep.
She's there or their father is there, but hello, I can't afford to
No.
have him come
No.
because the day for me and my lifetime will be spoiled.
There you
And
go.
then the toxic parent out there is waiting for this special day to just come when they are told to greet the church to say, I'm here, you know, I decided to come for this wedding, but I don't need what pushed me because this girl has been, you know, and they talk very negatively because they want the attention on them. They deflect it away from their child on the important day. And you know you'll never overcome this unless you get help.
And you can never get another chance to do another wedding, you know, unless.
So it becomes very, very difficult.
Councillor Mbugua, a question for you from one of our viewers. She's called Nuru. Now Nuru says, I have a toxic mom and I have to endure hours of screaming and lectures from her of how ungrateful I am sometimes, and I have to sneak. Nuru says she has to sneak out of the house just to get some peace. So she's asking, I think it's just in line with what you've shared, how can she cope? And for any other child who's watching, how can they cope?
Well, like I said, by getting professional help, by getting a close friend to talk with, and then the other thing, by reminding Nuru that it is not only herself in this whole Kenya who is going through a situation like that. There are others, and some others suffer in silence. We actually need to affirm this girl and tell her that she has done good to even come out in the open to say that she's going through an issue like this.
You know?
Then, as soon as possible, when she'll be able to live on her own, to get out.
Yeah, and just put boundaries.
Yes, and put boundaries. Yes.
There's another question from Pendo who sent, her question on our 22999 number. And her question is, my parents have put a rule that I can't have friends. And no one is allowed to come and see me. I am now 13. How can I get my parents to understand that I need friends?
Well, I speak to the parents out there. It is always safer for the parent to know the friends of your child. And not even to know them, to have them come over so that you can see them within your own environment to know who relates with your son or who relates with your daughter.
Yeah.
Your daughter or your son cannot be an island on their own. Allow them to mingle. Allow them to have friends. And especially at that beginning of adolescence, they need the affirmation of the peer group. Remember, at this time, the peer group is much more important than you, the parent. Yeah. And that is for a fact. Yes.
For parents who are watching, because I know our message so far has been so gloomy and almost doom-filled for a parent who's watching, but I know there's a way, if at all, we can stop, if at all we are toxic parents. If you can just share with the little time that we have, 1 or 2 pointers for a toxic parent who's watching and they're determined to change. What can you tell them?
Well, we have children who carry the pain of their parents. And these children end up becoming parents one day, and they are still carrying the pain. So the intergenerational thing is that I carry the pain and I transmit it.
Yeah, to the next
So
generation.
for you, the parent who is listening, the time to break that chain is now. By dealing with the pain, by dealing with whatever happened, and some of these things, in retrospect, we can understand where they are coming from. A lady who got probably booted by a boyfriend and were left with a child. So because they never dealt with this, the whole pain was passed to the child. A man, the same way. A father or a mother who grew up in an environment in which they were never affirmed.
Yeah.
And they are still looking for approval. Unfortunately, they are looking for approval from their children who are not in a position to know they need this.
That's true.
And in the same time, hurting them.
That's true.
Then probably somebody who lost a parent while they were young and they are still yearning for the life of this parent. They never go to learn how to relate with their parents. So when they have grown up and they have never dealt how to relate with parents, they also don't know how to relate to their children. So you find that this now moves on, and all these experiences, all these traumas of childhood that have never been dealt with, they are now passed on to the children. So the time to stop now is now, and ask for help, because help is there, and the parent can be helped to come out of it.
Thank you, Councillor Mbogwa. Yeah. And talking of help, how can a parent connect with you, or a child who's affected, how can they connect with you?
Probably I'll leave my number, 0722-442180.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Councillor.
Welcome. Thank you.
And on that note, we come to the end of today's episode of Today's Parent, where we talked about toxic parenting. As Councillor Mbogwa has said, we can stop. It is not too late. If you're a child who's affected, he has said it's important for you to put boundaries to protect yourself. And if you're a parent who suspects, sometimes it's hard for us to evaluate ourselves and just be honest with ourselves. It is not too late for you to change. If you need professional help, make sure you talk to a counselor, and we'll be happy to connect you to Councillor Mbogwa. Just send us an SMS on 22999 and we'll make sure we connect you to Councillor Mbogwa. I have been your host, Christine Kasina, and this has been Today's Parent, here in studio at Little Cribs, where you come to when you're looking for fun, durable and affordable kids furniture. And for parenting resources, go to www.supermamas.co.ke. I want to leave you with a quote. To be in our children's lives tomorrow, let's be in our lives today. I will repeat that again. To be in our children's lives tomorrow, let's be in their lives today. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.